Ro8's performance has just been absolutely incredible. You know, he put together a 4-0 sweep in that match in has to be record time. It's only appropriate Nozdormu showed up in that last game because that was over like that.
Certainly. So our next match is Neirea versus fr0zen. That's going to be coming up on the stream. Taking a look at how their paths have gotten to this point. Neirea got first place in his group, having defeated Dr. Jinky the Americas champion, and Palmblad from Korea. And fr0zen had definitely a rocky road getting here. You know, B787 definitely wasn't exactly the cleanest win. Had lost to Stan Dachi, which seems to be the trend these days. Everyone's losing to Stan. And of course, defeated X-Hope earlier today in a very well-played series. So taking a look at these guys line up head-to-head, and these are two well-documented players in the West. Do you think one player has an edge over the other, Brian?
It's hard to say. There's obviously the X factor of fr0zen's lineup. He has the most unusual lineup of the entire tournament, the Malagos Druid, no Pirate Warrior. And Neirea's lineup does have a lot of the decks that he's looking to target. So I think that fr0zen, he definitely has a shot to win for sure, and it's going to be a close match. All
right, well, let's find out what's going to happen. Who's going to get their ticket to the World Championship and make it to day 3? Our first player hailing from Ukraine. Please welcome to the stage, Neirea. And his opponent from the United States of America, looking for redemption, it is fr0zen.
Quarterfinal number 2, Neirea versus fr0zen.
Neirea is going to the top 8.
I'm not really happy how I played both series. I had some small mistakes that should be fixed. Probably just because I played too fast or was tunnel visioning something.
I played X-Hope last round and went to 7 games like I expected.
We have another player from USA advancing to the top 8.
Went a lot better because last night I spent around like 10-12 hours practicing. I'm playing Neirea next, and he probably has the best lineup in the entire field, and I think it's going to be a tough series.
One lose, and it's over. I think it's going to be a lot of pressure for both of us, but I can handle it.
Neirea versus fr0zen. Let's go!
We are ready to get into the next match, which is going to be Neirea versus fr0zen. We've talked a lot about all of the regions coming together for this championship, but this matchup itself is going to be a battle as old as time itself. EU versus Americas.
Yeah, and I do want to take a moment to congratulate Stan Dachi.
I thought you would.
I do. Not for even from a European perspective. He's just personally been one of my favorite players for a very, very long time. When I was writing guides, I took a lot of inspiration from him as a deck builder. When I was playing in tournaments, I trusted him to give me a deck list to bring as a powerful lineup. But back to the matter at hand, there are more places at stake at the World Championship. And as you said, the epic battle now between Europe and North America, and two of the most respected players each from their respective regions.
Yeah, and even though Neirea's been on the scene for much longer than most Hearthstone players actually, fr0zen has crammed in a large amount of experience in a slightly shorter amount of time as well. So both players absolutely exceptional. And we're going to be kicking it off with Neirea on his Druid and fr0zen on his Rogue. What do these lists look like to you, Sato?
Yeah, Neirea's Druid is the Jade Druid package. It's running that one Auctioneer, none of that Yogg craziness that we saw or didn't get to see from Doc Pone in the previous series. One Auctioneer, one Ancient of War, and 2 Druid of the Claws in the flexible minion spots. The 3-mana spell makeup is 1 Mulch and 2 Feral Rage. fr0zen, on the other hand, it's a Miracle Rogue, but it's a kind of an interesting take on it. He's not only cut the patches, as we've seen some other players do, he's also cut the Pirate package completely. Swashbucklers have bitten the dust to make room for more utility cards like Deadly Poisons, Barnes, and SI7 Agent.
Yeah, and we've seen some matchups that fr0zen's been playing that those cards have actually come out pretty clutch for him in terms of winning the game, so can't argue with it so far, but this is a game that matters now. If you get ahead in this one, it's going to make the series overall that little bit easier, and then book your spot at the World Championships.
And it's a great cue for fr0zen as well. Rogue into Druid of almost any variety is a big, big win for fr0zen as the Rogue. Innovate Druid of the Claw is going to potentially have something to say about that. Innovate is the one spanner that Druid can throw into the works of any bad matchup, but fr0zen on the Rogue, too much tempo generally, too much output for Druid to be able to deal with, and this card's Sap is usually one of the big backbreakers. Although this Sap looks okay, it can be used in much, much more punishing situations when you're tempoing together with a questing adventurer, when you're cycling off Auctioneer and clearing the board at the same time. So getting that Sap out of the way early for Neirea is actually a win for him.
Yeah, the key for Neirea here was there was no Sap plus a minion development, and combined with the fact that he can go 4, 5, 6 already in hand anyway, regardless of what he draws into going forward. So still plenty of options for Neirea. That Druid of the Claw is still stuck in bear form. You do not sap it back in its L form, and you get to choose again. So that's going to be a 4-6 taunt for the rest of the game, but definitely not a bad option. The flexibility of the card is great, but in this matchup overall, you're playing that your Jades are going to be doing the punch in late game anyway.
Yeah, the flexibility is one of the reasons why it's popped back up again. It's a great mid-game taunt just to stall out some of the pirate board. We saw in Green Sheep series, for example, that, you know, just waiting and waiting and waiting to try and get to that Ancient of War. Sometimes the pirate warrior just runs you over way too quickly for that to happen. So the 4-6 taunt bear form can help you just buy an extra turn or two in that kind of matchup. But then the 4-4 charge is just crushing sometimes against, you know, Reno decks, freeze mages, all kinds of control strategies. And even then, playing it in stats mode is often just fine in those matchups as well.
Yeah, and the thing about it is as well, a lot of the 4 damage, although yes, you know the cards in the deck, it's often very difficult to try and play around the 4 charge damage from hand, so just an additional layer there. Neirea getting the Behemoth down onto the board, and his Jades are a reasonable total in terms of 3 for now, but here comes the Gadget Zan into the conceal. fr0zen's hand was not one where the turn he plays Gadget Zan, it's going to go off. He is just prepping, getting it, well, not prepping, because that's a real card, preparing to get it stuck onto the board to continue this cycle next turn. Both players playing extremely fast.
Yeah, I guess
Crazy.
Anything Stan can do, we can do better. Is
Or
the
it worked out for Stan, I'm going to give this a go.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I wonder if we're going to see a Nozdormu battle come up in this series at any point, because these two players are going at a lightning pace as well. But I will note something fr0zen said in his most recent post-game interview, was that he was happy with the way he played that series more so than any, because he'd slowed down and he was thinking through all the options. So maybe we'll see fr0zen catch himself here and try and slow down the pace just a little bit.
Yeah, and something that's going to be important and probably actually very difficult to spot is something fr0zen's spoken about before, you know, when we spoke about it the other day, in terms of you shouldn't always make the most optimal play all of the time against a high-level opponent, which this sounds really weird, and we'll explain it as we go throughout the series, I guess. We don't have to do it all at once, as crazy stuff is happening with the Auctioneer now, but Neirea is definitely a high-level opponent.
He absolutely is. Preparation being picked up now. Chose to go with the Questing Adventurer now, just trying to max out on board threats. That one sap being used already does severely limit fr0zen's options for dealing with these big minions that are going to start coming out through the Jade mechanic. Blood Mage Fan is a great start here, maximizing the prep value on the 3-mana spell, giving himself maximum mana availability to be able to push through this. SI7 comes down now. There is a counterfeit coin that he could have cycled if he had a bit more time, but has to commit to the Auctioneer attack just to take care of the Behemoth.
Yeah, it's always tough when you think about your Gadget Zan turn before you even start to play Gadget Zan, then suddenly with you not knowing what cards you're going to draw in terms of potential cycle, it can be very difficult to squeeze it all in, even for high-level players such as these. Neirea does have Mulch available to just deal with this question and forget about it. Otherwise, it would have to get a little bit scary for Feral Rage, just face tanking 7. You probably don't want to do when Mulch is available. And he obviously has the Wrath here for the easy kill on the Gadget Zan, but there's just simply a lot of dudes on the board at the moment for fr0zen, and that's always a tricky spot for the Druid player.
Yeah, and this mulch is the final break glass in case of emergency card for Druid in a lot of these matchups. Once this mulch is gone, Neirea really has no game against huge questings, huge Edwins, other sizable minions that can come out here. So Dragonling mechanic, the pickup, probably not going to be hugely impactful, but now that mulch is gone, that is a big green light for fr0zen to start developing some huge threats if he can allocate the mana to do so.
Yeah, and also just to bring the attention to fr0zen's health, I'm not quite sure what happened, but he's on 16 out of nowhere, it seems. You know,
Well,
there wasn't...
I mean, this is the nature of old Rogue before the pirate package appeared, and that's what fr0zen is playing here because he's left all that stuff out. Now we're kind of used to it. We've seen it for months. Rogue's playing a 1-drop on turn 1, summoning patches, backing that up with the dagger. That gives them some board control. Once you take all that stuff out, you're rewinding the clock 6 months or so where Rogues were very, very passive for the early turns, and even just a small development of board presence early on, which is what Neirea did, can actually put the hurting on Rogue very quickly.
Yeah, and with all these options available and the Gadget Zan as well for future turns, I wonder if we're going to be seeing the sap on this 4-4. Oh no, okay, he's going for the Abyss because he, yeah, this is clean as well.
Yeah, he knows that there's still wars to deal with potentially, or the single war, there's the second Jade Behemoth as well, and there's just, you know, Neirea still at a stable life total here, potentially with Feral Rages as well in hand from fr0zen's perspective, so he knows the game still has some length to go here, so his sap will find a target. Even if the taunt minions weren't to come out, the Jades are just incrementally growing, so holding sap guaranteed to hit a big minion later on.
Yeah, and the health on this questing is actually very, very awkward. Not that Neirea can't answer it, he can just Feral Rage Hero Power and kill it off to stop it growing, because as we mentioned earlier, mulch is gone. That card is gone from this game, but what that does is stop him playing his Gadget Zan or his Jade Behemoth to continue to grow the Jades and continue to battle for the board. So very, very tough decision from Neirea here. Looks like he's starting for the Nourish.
Yeah, one point that needs covering as well is I think fr0zen got a clean read on no swipe in hand based on the play previously. There was that board where he mulched the 7-7, but the rest of the board was a 3-3, a 1-1, and the 4-1 Auctioneer. Yeah. That board gets swiped every single time alongside the mulch if it's there. So fr0zen was happy to develop this board, which again is a decent target for swipe to start picking it apart.
Yeah, 100%. And Neirea not being able to develop a minion kind of didn't help fr0zen out so much because the Backstab and the Deadly Poison were the only spells he has available. So that Gadget Zan is going to just chill for at least another turn. Still has a lot of options though. Drawing into Barnes. I mean, why not at this point?
I mean, there are reasons. Barnes in Rogue is often a card similar to in Tempo Mage that you want to play with some mana available afterwards because you can get these tools, the questing adventurers, the Gadget Zan Auctioneer. Of course, that's not an opportunity here for fr0zen. Played one already, second one in the hand. But he's just going through all the minion outs here because there are several in the Rogue deck when it's back all the way at 30 cards that gives you a significant advantage for holding and playing extra cards after the Barnes.
Good old Van Cleef though.
Yeah.
Just a 1-1.
Actually, a good chunk of info to Neirea as well, that Van Cleef is not in hand. That's the one big minion threat that's left in the deck now that he's dealt with both of the questings. So, bit of good news to Neirea that it's not currently in hand for fr0zen.
Yeah, one of the problems Neirea has at the moment, though, is all his minions don't really add up that well, except for the Azure Drake and Druid of the Claw. And, you know, playing both of those, although it stalls, it doesn't develop the sort of the onslaught of the Jades, which is, I feel, is at this point what he needs to actually finish up this game. I mentioned, what, 3 turns ago, fr0zen's on 16? He's still on 16. You know, fr0zen has grasped this board very, very firmly, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon.
You see Neirea there just toying with the J cards in his hands, suggesting that he might be thinking along the same lines as you are here, Raven. Just maxing out on the stats, the most mana efficient way he can do. 1 mana for a 6/6, and Feral Rage looks like he's using it to gain the armor here, just trying to extend the game. If he can gain 8 health and that buys him 1 more turn, that's 1 more turn that his huge Jades can potentially fight back on this board.
Yeah, and with this turn from Neirea, if you look, as we mentioned earlier on, depending on what happens from fr0zen's turn, the Druid of the Claw is actually still a large threat to potentially coming out. It would have been lethal if a couple of those minions stuck, so it did really force fr0zen to actually clear up these minions. minions.
fr0zen just wants that Edwin. The Edwin that we saw come from the Barns, he wants it, he hits it perfectly. That is a 3-mana Edwin, and the 1-mana Conceal left over. He can make a huge, oppressive, uninteractable board this turn.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things about this tournament so far is the players and all the different approaches to the game. And we can actually hear from Neirea about being more focused when he has his hands on his face. We've heard it all this time.
When I do this, that means I have full focus. If I just back off, then it's just like I know what I'm doing and I have a plan.
Yeah, it's all these different ticks from all the different players. Talking to Hats, using Hats as armor, touching your face.
Oh,
absolutely crazy.
So
did he miss it?
This is so
he didn't.
smart. He knows the mulch is gone. There's no way to deal with a 12-12 anyway. He doesn't need to conceal it. He just takes the buff on the extra stats. But
Wow.
again, roping out on his Auctioneer turn has actually cost him because Coin was the last card drawn. Could have used that to activate the Cold Blood as well for a significantly stronger turn.
Yeah, fr0zen said he was happy that he slowed himself down.
Yeah.
But we've seen, not just from fr0zen, in the tournament as a whole and in playing Rogue in general, you know, you do have to just kind of commit to these gadgets and turns fairly quickly and make that decision pretty soon to be able to pull it off. But fr0zen, with a huge board from the Rogue there, is going to be ahead in this series, going 1-0 up versus Neirea. And he just snowballed that game out of control and did not require these early minions we're used to seeing from Rogue recently.
Yeah, and just going back to the clash of regions here, if fr0zen were to take this series down, book his spot in the Hearthstone World Championship alongside Shdown Adachi, that would be one representative from North America already, and there is another one guaranteed because our 4th game is between Tare and Doc Pone, meaning one of those has to progress and go through. So it would mean North America would be in a very good shout of ending the final day with dominance over what looked like such a strong European showing early on.
Yeah, it would be absolutely crazy. But we heard from Neirea a little bit earlier, but now we can hear from fr0zen for its well met.
Well met.
My name is fr0zen. I am from Northville, Michigan, and I am currently 20 years old. I play Hearthstone 9 hours a day. Well, actually the longest stretch was 36 hours. Before I play in a big tournament, I usually eat healthy and sleep well. My favorite food is sushi. The best thing about playing in the HCT is being in the Bahamas.
Can't argue with a lot of those comments. HCT being in Bahamas is definitely pretty cool. Well, a lot of interesting moments there from fr0zen. He is played for 36 hours straight.
Yeah.
Look, I love Hearthstone. I also like sleeping sometimes, so no thanks for me, but it proves some of the, the long sort of grinds he's capable of, and fr0zen is a bit of a grinder in general anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I also love Hearthstone, and I don't sleep, but there's still no way that I can keep focus for 36 hours straight and actually be productive in anything that I'm doing in Hearthstone. So hats off for fr0zen for making that kind of marathon happen, but you can see the kind of high level he is playing at. One or two moments with the Auctioneer there where he missed, he just waited a little bit too long, missed some opportunities off his final draws, but his sequencing overall was fantastic.
Yep.
That last minute Edwin play, the way that he rationed out his threats against the removal from Neirea, that read on there not being a swipe available from Neirea as well. All of that was very, very strong play to be able to defeat what was a very strong start from Neirea and a very slow start on his end.
Yeah, and we're just flipping the classes round as we go into game 2. fr0zen now on his Druid and Neirea on his Rogue, but there are a few differences to these lists, Soto.
Very, very different matchup. This is fr0zen on what he describes as his favorite deck, the Malagos Druid. He loves playing combo decks, and powerful, effective combo decks are few and far between these days in Hearthstone. This Malagos Druid is one that fr0zen believes at least is still very effective, and his results seem to be backing that up, even if no one else seems to be able to get this deck to perform at the levels that fr0zen does.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it all along. I predicted him in the playoffs. Got it right. Pretty sure he's going to do well here. Seems to be doing okay, so... Yeah, me and fr0zen, we know what's up.
Oh, my pick, Shdown Adachi's already made it, so you've got to play catch-up.
Your Shdown Adachi pick was never confirmed or caught on camera, so it is not true. But back to this game. We've been noticing as well, you know, seeing the player cams, Neirea still, you know, holding this sort of focused stance he has just to be able to really get himself into the game. And fr0zen has been looking progressively more relaxed, a huge difference from previous days he's played in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm a little confused about focus stance. If hands on face means that you're more focused, why not play with hands on face 100% of the time?
How do you move the mouse?
All right, good point. Okay, I take your point.
A foot comes up onto the desk and you're like, oh, okay, Neirea was serious about this. 100% focus, 100% of the time. Tomb Pillager is going to be able to trade into this Minekeeper pretty easily, though, and we do see, again, you know, you pointed out the differences in, like, the Rogue decks, for example, is there's a Swashbuckler. There was already Pirates coming out to start pressuring the early game. And, okay, Conceal, why not?
Yeah, I think this is... Neirea recognizes that he is kind of in a rush here. Any deck against this Malagos combo deck from fr0zen is in a rush because it is one of the most powerful late games you can get to. It just nukes everything and ends the game if you allow them to assemble all their combo pieces. So you do have to speed up with whatever deck you are playing and make sure you push through before they get enough time to start slamming nourishes and activate their big cycle turns, and then eventually get to that big, oppressive game-winning combo turn.
Yeah, let's see what happens with this Quest Adventure. It is growing quite significantly, and this could be just the push that ends the game at this point. fr0zen may not have the time required to be able to make this work and even survive at this point.
Yeah, this is going to be an absolute nightmare for fr0zen to navigate his way out of. He can prep Sap right here, can Neirea, to clear the board, make it more difficult for removal, as well as pushing 2 extra damage. Or he can choose to hold on to it to play around any huge taunts that come down on the next turn. But he's just going to go ahead and do it.
Why not this
He's
point?
going to push the damage. He's going to say to fr0zen, all right, buddy, 7 cards in hand and 9 mana. I just don't see a way you stop this punish.
3 mulches.
And then an admin would immediately be called and fr0zen would be disqualified for cheating.
Yeah, which he would never do, of course. So this is going to be almost insurmountable, I think. Just insurmountable at this point. Too much damage, and there's even still in Neirea's hand a Swashbuckler to create, you know, effective card draw for next turn if required at this point.
Fandral, Raven Idol here. The Drake wasn't going to be good enough here, was it? Drake, Wrath, 2 Moonfires and a Living Roots. Could have Wrathed and double Moonfire down the 8/8. Living Roots then doesn't even take care of the Tomb Pillager. Yeah. So yeah, that was never going to get there.
You need a couple of Innovates as well.
Does pick up the swipe. Now he's going to go for the Wrath, hope that this cycle lands on the swipe, and then is that good enough to keep him alive alongside the Moonfires? fr0zen digging for the outs. There is the Innovate. Can he make this happen now? Living Roots takes down the 4/4. Moonfire can finish it off. And that just leaves the 8 power on board. Innovating the Bluegill Warrior with a cheeky grin on his face. Trying to make Neirea believe that he has the answers here, but he quite simply does not.
Yeah, both players going at it and evening up this stage for Neirea. 1-1 in this match. Neirea's looking really good with this Rogue so far. And it just, you know, both Rogues just taking the wins there. But we can check out what Neirea thinks of one of his other decks, which is one he's got a few thoughts about, which is the Freeze Mage. And they might have a few issues with this one.
Oh, Mine's behind the lines.
It's Freeze Mage Mirrors.
In the Freeze Mage Mirror against Palmblood, I think we both kind of misplayed.
If you're new to Hearthstone, the mirror matchup can definitely get a little weird.
The last time I played Freeze Mage Hardcore, it was more than a year ago.
Palmblood, he's got the draw, he's got the Emperor. If you can line up his cards correctly, he might be the one in driver's seat, but Neirea also has the Alexstrasza. We'll see what happens.
The end is coming!
We both had Emperor and Doomsayer, and it's really important to set up Emperor first. And also he had a coin, so he could have saved the coin for the Alexstrasza turn after the Emperor.
This Alexstrasza coming down to burn Palmblad's face.
So I think it was misplay on his part. On my part, I could have saved the Doomsayer for my Emperor turn, but it would have been really close after that, so I can't really tell.
Palmblood got really aggressive.
Playing Freeze Mage, it was the only games where I played defensive. Maybe because I didn't have much practice before.
You win. try to end this game early, but he's the one being ended. He just concedes.
So I need to catch up in like few days playing it. Maybe I should practice.
Mine's behind the lines.
It's behind the lines indeed. We can see what deck list we've got left for each of these players, and you know, we can step into your mind, Sol. A very scary place normally, no doubt. But what do you think of these decks?
Yeah, Freeze Mage being banned out from Frozen is interesting for one, but it does take us away from that potential Freeze Mage mirror, which can be a bit of a ridiculous matchup to see coming up against each other. I know Freeze Mage players, some of them really like playing it out, but it's a very bizarre matchup to watch happen, and you can see just the wide variation of decks being played here due to Frozen bringing that Malagos OTK Druid as his Druid lineup, and it's the Pirate Warrior being banned out on the other side. But this matchup so far has been going relatively as expected. Two rogues both picking up wins in heavily favored matchups quite comfortably in the end. One a little quicker than the other, but still with relative ease from both sides.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at Frozen, just keeps looking at Neirea and laughing. I think it's just, I don't know what he's finding so amusing.
It's like he's trying to play the Pavel mind games,
but can't
then
keep a straight face.
He just cracks up as soon as they make eye contact. Yeah.
Just looks at Neirea and just tickles. Okay, so we are going to be moving on into Game 3. It's Fr0zen going for his Dragon Priest, one of the most failing decks in the tournament so far. We've seen this deck struggle time and time again. Neirea is going to be playing the Freeze Mage. Not a matchup we see too often.
No.
How does this one normally go?
Good matchup for the Freeze Mage. There's one or two things that have got a little bit weird since Draconid Operative got introduced into the game. Draconid Operative can do a few things. Firstly, it can pull unexpected burn. That's a big deal. But first and foremost, it can pull Ice Block, and that's when things start to get complicated. Generally, if you're playing intelligently, you should still be favored through a Dragon Priest that gets one Ice Block off a Draconid Operative, but there are things that you can do to prevent that, which Neirea didn't do here, but kind of got happy by proxy, which is keep the Ice Blocks in your opening hand to reduce the chances of that happening. He mulliganed into his block, but that being there is actually a powerful effect in the matchup.
Yeah, and we're going to see Neirea drop down a Doomsayer on 2. This gives Fr0zen a card draw instead of him being able to curve out with his minions. A very common play you see used against Priest, but one where, you know, it's not as hard as other classes where they have to just deal with Doomsayer and just pass and kind of really lose out.
Yeah.
At least get one card draw because of the Cleric being on the board. So kind of a sort of gentleman's agreement there. They were just like, okay, I'm going to kill this Cleric and clear the board. But you can have a card draw for it, friend.
Yeah, this Loot Hoarder is very important for Neirea here. His hand was dry on cycle. He does want to cycle quite quickly here. You can stall against this deck for a lot longer than you might think, and you're free to expend a lot more resources than you might think as well. Forgotten Torches, of course, are free to use as removal. Most people who play this game at a decent level understand that, but actually Fireballs you're quite happy to throw away in this matchup as well, because they're kind of expensive, they're clunky, they're tough to combo with Evolve Kobold anyway. So primarily, you can go for a long time just burning down your opponent's minions one by one and try and stretch out your freeze and your AoE effects for as long as you can. That then naturally extends the game for those extra turns you need to get the whole of your deck in your hand and set up those big combo finishes.
Yeah, you know deck's powerful when you say, oh, Fireball, it's a bit of an awkward, clunky card, you know, not the highest power card in the deck.
Yeah.
You're like, oh,
yeah.
I thought Fireball was pretty good, but
Right.
Freeze Mage cares not for any damage card that costs more than 3 mana at this point.
Yeah.
If it's not 3 mana or less, not worth it. Going to normally be used to either be reduced by Emperor or just, as you said, quite rightly, sort of thrown away onto minions and slowing down this board pressure that Fr0zen is going to try and advance with here.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why people kind of missed out on Evolve Kobold for a while. No one really tried it out for a long time in Freeze Mage, or not to any kind of high-level effect, because they thought it was too expensive to combine with these common tools like Fireball. But of course, as you go on further down the line, you can get those 3-mana Roaring Torches in your deck. You can discount them down to 2. Frostbolts and Ice Lances go down to 1 and 0 with the discount. So those are the big combo tools you want to use as your burst damage, leaving Fireball free to be used as removal.
Yeah, and you saw there with the Discover from the Nether Spite, the power of Operative, especially, you know, the card's super powerful in general, but especially in this matchup. A lot of the times versus Freeze Mage, if you can get a big dude out early enough that just can't be killed,
Yeah.
and normally it's Ragnaros as the straightforward straightforward one, but Giants, for example, Malygos is huge. The Freeze Mage actually just can't kill it. It just doesn't really have a way at all, so it lives and continues punching face. fr0zen had a couple of big options, even the Farin as well, I think was the other one, and it still chose the Operative just because of the raw power of that card to be able to select one of the 3 cards in the deck at the time.
There it is, both ice blocks in hand before a single Operative has been played by fr0zen. That is so key to the matchup. Neirea will let out a sigh of relief, not because the ice blocks are great draws at this point, they're not, but he's just beaten the clock on the Draconid Operative here, although it does pick up the next best thing in significant burn in the form of Roaring Torch.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the Kobold for the Dragonfire Potion or Nova value against Freeze Mage.
Evolved Kobold Holy Nova for that sweet, sweet burst damage finish.
Exactly, you never expect it from Priest. Okay, and there's the Torch as well, so I think there's only been 1 Torch played so far, right?
Yes.
So,
I think so.
Neirea's starting to piece together some kind of damage, but really not a lot. I wouldn't be too shocked to see a Blizzard here, as this board is pretty beefy. The only worry is that with Blizzard, you kind of want to chain Blizzard into more AoE against Dragon Priest to be able to actually kill the minions, as opposed to Blizzard, then they might get healed up, and then now it's just going to stay on the board forever at this point.
Yeah, and this is kind of what I've been saying. You can go 1-for-1 with removal spells for a lot longer than you might suspect you can. If this Roaring Torch was an actual 4-mana Fireball, I think we'd see a snap Fireball turn here. Get rid of that 5/6. It buys so much time. The fact that it is a Roaring Torch, which is so easy to combo with the spell damage effects later, that makes it a little bit more difficult, but still, there you go. I love this from Neirea. Great recognition of the situation here. He understands you can go much, much longer against this deck than many people think.
And as well, you know, you were mentioning about Evolved Kobold earlier. Thanos used to be the key card for the extra spell damage to require you to use some more burst. In this current version of Freeze Mage, Kobold is the key one. Thanos is just some nice extra damage sometimes and cycle, which is very, very important. And as we can see, Neirea having the 2 ice blocks, so keeping them away from fr0zen's grasp, but not having much else at all, to be honest. These next few draws from Neirea need to be pretty huge, or fr0zen might just overrun him, and he has a torch of his own to be able to burst. So looking pretty scary for Neirea so far.
fr0zen now trying to decide whether extra health on one of his minions or just the extra minion for more power in play is valuable. And that decision comes a lot down to the tech choices in Neirea's deck. The one and only real tech choice these days in Freeze Mage on a list that is almost 100% standard is 2 Ice Barriers or 1 Ice Barrier and Flame Strike. And Neirea is going with the 2 Ice Barrier build, which means that fr0zen does not have to play around Flame Strike.
Yeah, and I was saying Neirea needed the card draw. He got Arcane Intellect. He's equipped the Ice Block now. Now he has Blizzard next turn to potentially set up Alexstrasza and some burst. You know, suddenly, in 1 turn, Neirea's pieced together a hell of a lot of damage.
Yeah, so if Neirea can protect this block for a couple of turns here, which he most likely can, Blizzard on 8 means that his block will be protected. He then goes Alexstrasza on 9. He's then able to follow that up with Fireball, Frostbolt, Ice Lance, which is 17 damage.
It's a nice number.
It's a nice number against a class that can heal themselves up for 2. fr0zen's list, I will just double check real quick to confirm, yes, there is 1 Holy Nova that can get those 2 extra points of healing round to potentially get him out of range.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. In the space of, 1 turn, there was a potential swing here for Neirea, but fr0zen, with the Torch, is able to play the, prot the block this turn. Frost Nova, absolutely fantastic pickup. Neirea finding exactly what he needs as and when he needs it. Now Neirea can just be as safe as he wants. He can play the Nova and the Ice Block this turn, as opposed to having to choose between Blizzard or Ice Block. But Ice Block being procced would mean you would just die anyway for the Alexstrasza, so it would have to have been a Blizzard, and then you just hope that you can survive. But after seeing the Torch, you're probably feeling confident about surviving anyway after the Blizzard.
That's the one operative card gone.
Yeah.
That's the one X factor, and I talked about it a bunch, how that card changes all the rules. I talked about how the setup was almost automatic from that point. Blizzard into Alex into burn them out, but it was the Roaring Torch that Neirea potentially couldn't account for that then changed the rules. But the Frost Nova draw put Neirea right back in the driving seat. Now this same setup proceeds as normal. He now has an Ice Block to protect, curving into Alexstrasza on 9 with the damage to back it up.
Yeah, fr0zen just... Oh, okay.
Oh,
this changes a few
boy.
things.
No.
Torch, not going to be enough. That was a fireball.
He
Oh no, he didn't have
couldn't
enough
cast
mana.
it, yeah.
Oh, so there's no Roaring Torch in the deck for Neirea, right?
I think so, no, because he's just taken the second Forgotten Torch.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
meaning there's the one Roaring Torch has already been used.
Oh, so he can't prot the block this turn, so Neirea has pretty much game at this point.
100%. The second Frostbolt.
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually the additional damage
The
through
second
Nova.
Frostbolt absolutely locks it up. Before that Frostbolt, there was a live Holy Nova draw for fr0zen this turn, which could have got him enough healing to get out of range. But there you go. I would say expertly played. I will always defer my opinion to that of fr0zen. So if you actually, to that of Laughing's. So if you want to know how well that Freeze Mage game was actually played, go message Laughing on Twitter, and I'm sure he'll tell you. But from my perspective, it looked pretty damn solid from Neirea.
Very, very clean. There were definitely shaky moments, but not because of Neirea, because of what he had in his hand available to him. But the card draw just turned up at the right moment. He managed to cycle through into the burn required, and then suddenly the turns almost played themselves.
Yeah. And fr0zen is doing the right thing here. He's cycling as much as he possibly can to try and get to what he might think is the Holy Nova that will save him. But Neirea has cleaned this one up nicely, and we will just watch the spells fly.
There we go. That is going to be the game for Neirea. And he moves forward in this series 2-1. Head in hands a little bit there for fr0zen, but a lot of the time, Freeze Mage does this kind of thing to you, and there isn't too much you can actually do about it. fr0zen played very well there, but if Freeze Mage has all the pieces of the puzzle, then they win the game.
Yeah, and you know, Freeze Mage is a deck that you don't bring to tournaments, or at least you shouldn't bring to tournaments unless you're very, very comfortable in all the matchups you expect to be coming up against. It's happened in the past where people bring Freeze Mage and don't look as comfortable with it as they should be. Neirea, no way is falling into that category right now. Freeze Mage gets through on the first opportunity, showing absolute mastery of a matchup that's got a lot more complicated since Draconid Operative entered the format.
Yeah, and also we saw it on the screen there as well when you see the players' decks that Neirea actually won his group 2-0, and fr0zen is actually total 2-1 in series throughout this tournament because he lost one of his matches, which meant he had to play through the lower bracket, which means you have to play one more match to get to this point. So Neirea actually unbeaten in this tournament so far as he takes this step forward in front of fr0zen 2-1 in this series.
Yeah, phenomenal opportunity, and he's looking now to join his European compatriot Stan Udachi. These were the two players that had us full of some very big words on day one, Raven, about how well Europe has been doing. It hasn't quite been going to plan since then, but it's looking like Stan and Neirea might be able to continue flying the flag and keep up the tradition of two European players making it to the eventual World Championships each year.
Yep, looks like it's going well so far, but fr0zen will have plenty to say about it, no doubt at all. So we move on to game 4. It's going to be fr0zen on the Priest again, and Neirea going to his Jade Druid. And I feel like for me, the key point in this matchup is, well, two, I guess, is one, as always, how fast can the Priest get going? If they curve out early, it's actually very difficult for the Druid to deal with, but also, when can that Dragonfire Potion come down to clear the Jades?
Right.
And what health are the Jades at when they do?
Does it
that
even
is very
get
key.
drawn as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Factor.
It needs to come down when the Jades are, you know, 4, 5, maybe even 6 if you've got minions to help trade with. Any later, if the Jades are big and then you draw Dragonfire, it probably isn't going to matter anymore. So very key card in this matchup.
Tempo Bran from fr0zen does have the value to pick up with Netherspite Historian on the following turn. Neirea now has a tough decision. Does he continue to tempo out with something like Azure Drake here, the fabled unkillable minion against a Dragon Priest in particular, or does he respect this Bram Bronzebeard, slow down his development here with the Wrath? Looks fine since he can still pair the Wild Growth with it, but that Wrath is such a good pairing with the fr0zen that he has in hand as well.
Yeah, while Neirea considers this, we can hear from fr0zen about how he approaches the game when he falls behind in a series.
If I fall behind in a match, I think it's important to not get tilted, stop, think, play your turns out slower, and try to regroup.
Not the first time we've heard fr0zen talk about his actual play speed, as we did see Neirea go for a fairly straightforward turn with the Wrath into the Wild Growth to help ramp up there. fr0zen following up with a Nether Spite and picking the Twilight Whelp when they were much more, at first glance, higher value minions. Why was this?
He's looking at expected drops from Druid. This is key #1 at playing against Druid. They are, you know, after all intents and purposes, a very trumped up curve deck. They can do very silly things with their curve because of the mana acceleration, but they just have expected power cards that they can play on each turn. Going into 6 or 7 mana here from the opponent, Shadow of Death would be something that could cover Ancient of War. It was Aya and Jade Behemoth that he was setting up for more effectively by getting that extra bit of power onto the board with the Twilight Whelp.
Yeah, definitely some good heads-up play there from fr0zen. Neirea, though, with the Wrath draw and the Vandal, this is going to be huge. You can nourish, gain 2 crystals, and still Wrath afterwards, because Vandal is just a beast. Except he's not. Just in case anyone thinks I'm feeding people false information about the game.
But don't try and activate your kill command with him.
Could you even get Vandal? I suppose Mulch get Vandal in Hunter.
Yeah. Bookworm coming down, big tempo swing, but that was a huge value turn from Neirea with the Nourish and the Wrath being able to play it on the same turn. Auctioneer now in hand as well, alongside Coin, Jade Idol, other cheap spells as well with the Mulch and Feral Rage. Neirea is going to have a huge chunk of his deck in his hand right now, and it's very, very easy to turn cards into tempo with Jade Druid. That's something that old mid-range Druid didn't used to be able to do very well. If they had 9 or 10 cards in their hand, they can still only play 1 or 2 a turn, because they're 4 drops and 5 drops and 6 drops. Jade Druid can actually generate huge minions with 3 mana cards like Jade Blossom, with 1 mana cards like Jade Idol, and actually make use of having massive amounts of cards in hand.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. See Evolve Kobo come out, and I know everyone at home can't see me here, but I'm trying the Neirea approach. My hand is on my face, because I'm trying to focus and work out how Neirea is so far ahead in terms of mana, still got plenty of cards in hand, and he's looking himself in a very, very strong spot here, regardless of fr0zen being able to clear up this gadget zone.
The answer, as always, is Druid.
Druid, yeah. It worked! We got the answer.
We got there. We got their team. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Normally, you know, a classical, old-school, mid-range or ramp Druid would not be able to explode this heavily in a single turn, because the cards just don't represent as many stats per mana as this Jade Spirit and Jade Behemoth does. And just look at the board presence that Neirea is building out of nowhere. He has at least 2 solid reloads still remaining in the rest of his hand to keep the pressure up on fr0zen.
He's got reloads whichever way you look at it. He can pour onto the board again, or he can just nourish, draw more cards, refill his hand. So Neirea is in such a demanding position here. The best thing is we might actually see Evolve Kobold Holy Nova after the joke last game. It might work.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, it is.
It's serious.
We are
no!
Oh, fr0zen. Thought I was going to become a prophet there for a second.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. Is this right? This is probably right. Yeah, memes aside, you needed to react already. The next wave of Jade Golems was going to get out of range of that 4 damage Holy Nova anyway, so he was going to be behind the play no matter when he Holy Nova'd, so he might as well do it this turn when he can get access to the card draw, try and pick up some more answers that way. The Dragonfire Potion, if he can draw that, of course, is more effective still than the Kobold Holy Nova, and this as well preserves the Kobold to potentially combine with the Dragonfire Potion if the game goes really late, and that is a huge AoE.
Yes, because even though Jade Druids have effectively infinite amount of Jades, you normally get to around 8 and 9 as the top in your average game, right? You know, well, your average late game, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if you know, that extra damage to do 7, it means you can clear all of the low ones out, and might actually, you know, 1 Jade per turn that's huge is way more manageable than a board full of multi-health ones. So this could actually come into play quite a lot late in the game, but is Neirea going to give fr0zen the time? I see a lot of green cards in hand that summon dudes.
Yeah, swipe was actually a really important pickup because fr0zen actually gripped the board that turn, which was very important. It means that the roles reverse and Neirea has to play minions into an already established board without the effective removal in his hand that he had. Since he picked up the swipe, that allows him to get a swing turn of his own, and he's right back in the position he was on the previous turn.
Yeah, Neirea was like, nope. Playing a 3-mana 5/5 and clearing up the board seems pretty good to me. He can still next turn play the Jade Behemoth and the Jade Blossom to continue ramping these guys out of control. Here comes the Operative though.
Living Roots clears the 4-1 right now. Druid of the Claw is obviously just a much, much higher value card, but Living Roots solves a problem that needs to be solved immediately.
Yeah, I'm wondering how could just Druid of the Claw, because there's powered shield in hand, and just create a huge dude, although you don't directly kill too much. But it just creates an awkward minion for Neirea to deal with.
The Innovate draw, though. fr0zen's got a plan. I don't know what it is.
He's a man with a plan. I have
There
no
is
doubt
a
about
plan
that.
here somewhere. Okay, he wants to power shield this turn and take care of the 5/5, prioritizing that over the 4-1. So no massive grand designs for the Innovate, just using it essentially to draw 1 additional card this turn.
Yeah, now with Neirea picking up the second swipe means that he can actually just clear off this Operative if he really wants to, or he can just continue to play Jade cards. We've seen 1 idol, I believe, in this game.
I think both. I think there was a 1/1 idol played in the early game, and 1 was cycled off Auctioneer. I'm not 100% on that.
So we've
but
seen
I
1
think
cycled
that's right.
though.
No, 1 was played as a minion and cycled off Auctioneer.
Oh, okay.
I'm not 100%. Don't quote me.
If that's the case, I mean, you know, there's a lot of Jades knocking around in there. It's very difficult to keep count a lot of the time. But if that is the case and Jade idols are actually used up already without cycling them into your deck, this kind of changes the plan for Neirea. He does not have that inevitability at this point. You can still make some big Jades with what's left. But I believe we've seen a lot of the Jade cards so far. There's still Aya, though.
There is
That's
still Aya,
that's the biggie.
yes. And there's still the Ancient of Wars as well, with the Death now having been used. There you go.
Boom.
Right on time. 5/10 and a 7/7 is available this turn if Neirea wants to leave this Azure Drake up.
I'm okay with that if I'm Neirea. Putting that much power on the board when you have next turn Nourish and Swipe at worst to continue drawing into the deck. Although Nourish, the cards might start to be a problem. Is there any reason to Nourish this turn? There's only 8 cards left in Neirea's deck.
I don't think you want to be holding back on tempo anytime soon. fr0zen is starting to get a good grip here, and there is a point with Jade Druid where you have to abandon playing for the board and essentially just generate enormous stuff and hit face. There's a point where the amount of stats you can play just becomes too ridiculous to even consider trading. That might be about where we're at for Neirea. He disagrees, though. He's going to try and stretch this game out a bit longer.
Yeah, I guess he wants just that 1 more turn. This is clean, and he deals with the Drake, which again helps out, you know, the lack of spell damage. 1, the Drake lives through Dragonfire Potion for a start, and buffs it as well. So just want to remove that pesky minion and maybe even hope that fr0zen's just running out of the strong minions, which we can see kind of is at this point. These minions are good that he has in hand, but none of them are the big dragons that are going to be a little bit difficult to deal with.
Talon Priest, the 1/2 is 5. Heal, the 1/2 is 7. Argus, the 1/2 is 8. He can then trade into the 6/2 and keep the minion around in a form that can't be hero powered down afterwards, making a very, very irritating taunt wall. That looks like a solid play, but he's going to go Defender of Argus straight up here just on the minion. fr0zen does sometimes look at this game in some very, very, very unique ways. It was something that we learned very quickly by listening to him talk about the game during Trinity Series, especially with his teammates. Some of the time he
wants to Starfire the Dome.
Some of the time he wants to Starfire the Dome. Some of the times he's just suggesting strange plays just to stimulate conversation. But sometimes he genuinely does just see the Matrix and comes up with a play that I just don't think anyone else in the world would suggest in the same situation.
Yeah, it's definitely not the first time we've seen stuff like this come out from him. It's going to be the Nourish from Neirea, dropping him down a few cards, but being able to cycle even more. Druid of the Claw picked up that final card. That was 4 cards cycled that turn alone and developing onto the board. And his Defender Vargas might have some extra health. Still only hits for 2 though, and that is going to be the concede from fr0zen. Neirea takes a huge step towards winning this series, going on to match point with that Jade Druid, and that was just a phenomenal opening, to be honest. You know, he had everything he needed, and those Jades were so big so quickly as well.
Yeah, navigated that game very, very comfortably as well. That is a matchup that you'll hear is hotly disputed depending on who you talk to. Lots of Priest players will say, you know, if you get down early and you're aggressive, you don't overtrade into the Druid minions early, then that matchup is very comfortably Dragon Priest favored. But, you know, there's debate even amongst the casting team as to who's favored in that matchup. You hear us talk about it quite a lot, but Neirea was able to navigate that very comfortably in the end. Got off to a very good start with the early idol and a bunch of ramp, and was able to navigate through the rest of his turns quite nicely to get there.
Yep, so let's go back to check out game 3 here, and there was a slight incorrect sequencing which prevents the Corruptor block proc here. And let's see how this turns out. Take us through this, Sol.
So yeah, Roaring Torch is what's used in the end, but his lack of sequencing means that he's popping the block too high and creating an opportunity. Popping at 7 instead of popping at a lower number then opens the door for Neirea on the following turn with the Frost Nova to be protected at 7 health instead of the lower number, which means Corruptor would come out from hand on the following turn and change the entire equation of that matchup, because Neirea wouldn't have been able to protect his ice blocks for those extra turns that he needed. That's actually a really good catch from someone back in the production truck who's piped that forward to us, making a huge difference overall in this series.
Yeah, we're all one big team here at HCT, so if we don't get it straight away, there is someone more intelligent than us that will. So thank you guys in the back for that replay. That was something we missed, and that was definitely awesome to see and could have changed the outcome of that game.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if like fr0zen even recognized that he could pop for his entire turn. He may have only noticed at the last minute, oh wait, Roaring Torch procs here. Whereas if he'd sequenced using the Roaring Torch first and then attacked with the minions, that Corruptor would have been threatening lethal for the rest of the game.
Yeah, and let's go into potentially the final game of this series. Neirea is 3-1 up versus the American player fr0zen, and Neirea on this Reno lock, and fr0zen back on the Druid this game.
So this, again, is not a Jade Druid from fr0zen. This is the Aviana Kun Malagos OTK Druid.
It's a mouthful.
It really is, yeah. Kung Fu Druid is what you call it. Just trying to piece together that combo that allows you to play Malagos for 1 mana due to Aviana, refresh your entire pool of 10 mana crystals because of Kun, and then power together insane amounts of spells, just comfortably covering 30 damage OTK, comfortably destroying any board presence, and even if it's not instantly lethal, you leave behind a 5-5, a 7-7, a 4-12, and anything else you can possibly play alongside it.
Yeah, I just enjoy it when Malagos comes down in that sequence, and then you just swipe face and you just clear the board.
Yeah, the board's just gone.
Yeah, swipe is just clear the board and do a lot of damage to your opponent's face. So fr0zen is going to go for the Fandral, get it down relatively early here, and Neirea can just drop a turn 4 Mountain Giant. Not many scenarios when you don't want to make this play in almost every matchup.
The Mulch is on deck for fr0zen, though, to solve this problem nice and easily, and that's going to consolidate his Fandral for 1 more turn, meaning he's going to hit that big Nourish potentially on the follow-up if Neirea doesn't find an answer, and I don't think there is an answer to be found in this hand. Doomsayer can potentially, you know, answer it after the fact, but the Nourish will still happen either way.
Yeah, but if Doomsayer does come down, there's a very easy just Nourish into Wrath trade anyway, and the Fandral lives and continues to be a pest. This is going to be really tough for Neirea to try and navigate. It's just checking. We'll just check out what the Twilight Geomancer actually does. 2 mana, 1/4 Taunt. Battlecry give you Cthulhu Taunt wherever it is. So somewhere in Neirea's collection, Cthulhu has gained Taunt once this gets played.
Card that's so bad it never even saw play in Cthulhu decks.
Yeah, because you never really you killed them, right?
Yeah.
Who needs taunt when you kill them that turn?
Yeah, they just kind of died. He is going to go Doomsayer now. Here's Neirea. He plays the Twilight Geomancer as well. That puts up the wall, which means the Wrath and trade will not work out. But nonetheless, the Nourish is back-breaking here, even if the Fandral does end up going down afterwards.
Yeah, this is just straight up value. There can be just a follow-up of just hero power this turn. And Frozen, although would have liked to be able to kill off this Doomsayer and continue the game with the Fandral on the board, is still going to be pretty happy with this outcome, I think.
Options for Frozen. There are some niche ways that he could take care of this Doomsayer and preserve his Fandral, but it does use up an enormous amount of burst damage out of your deck, potentially when paired with Malagos later on. And since you're playing against a Reno deck, your big endgame plan is making sure you have that 30 damage covered to be able to beat even the Reno in the end.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. I was wondering whether it's even potentially worth it to try and do this, because on turn 6, you're kind of expecting there's a removal for Fandral. You know, the Siphon Soul, for example.
Yeah.
And if Siphon Soul happens, then you have already in hand, before the card draw from the Wrath, you know, the Ancient of War to just dunk down. So, you know, Frozen could have took that route and tried to pile a lot of pressure with a big minion. Did choose to just take this a small amount of damage from Fandral and let Neirea do his thing, and Neirea's not really been able to present much of a scary board in itself here.
It was a huge investment, though. It was Wrath, Living Roots, Moonfire, and the Innovate to get that done, to be able to take care of the Doomsayer. So he just ended up cycling the Wrath. The fact that it took care of the Geomancer and got him to connect to face, that was just a byproduct. He just wants to dig through his deck here, draw as fast as he can. That is the nature of this combo-based deck that he is playing.
Ooh, there's one.
There's the Mali.
Golden as well. I expect nothing less from Frozen.
1 Moonfire in hand, 1 0-mana Living Roots, and a Innovate, which doesn't give him access to any more additional spell damage cards here. So that's 10, 13 damage available on this turn, but the swipes become live on the following turn alongside that Innovate.
Yeah, this is often, though, a matchup that you... there are some matchups where you can just drop Malagos and like, Innovate Swipe and then win the game off the back of that. This one, generally not, because of mainly Siphon Soul. If you play Malagos and you just get Siphoned, the Warlock stabilizes, then even the Aviana combo doesn't really do anywhere near as much without the punch from Malagos. So a little bit risky to do anything too much there, but I do like the cycle here.
Seem to be toying with the Living Roots and Moonfire there for a second. I'd be surprised to see any of those being used. Frozen now going for, again, another late Auctioneer turn. He's going to struggle to get all this sequencing correct at the end. Moonfire picked up off the Raven Idol. His Malagos damage output is massive.
He needs to play something else, right? And he can't.
Well, I mean, does he?
I mean,
does he care about any card in his deck getting burned right now? He basically has the OTK set up from hand.
I guess when you put it that way, Saul.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Still, I don't really want to burn cards. Okay, so also Frozen being pretty safe himself, being on so much health with that additional 8 armor. He's got nothing particularly to worry about. Neirea going to go for the Kazakus. What options is he even looking for at this point?
Armor. Armor is big here. 10 mana for armor means that he can Reno, and then if the hand from Frozen was not as good as it is right now, he could find the Reno, get himself back up to 30, and then use the armor to potentially pull out of range of a big burst damage combo. But it's all going to be a formality here. This is game-ending damage in hand for Frozen.
No, Raven Idol. It's not the one we want to see burn, but that doesn't matter. Frozen is going to take a win and will not be dropped by Neirea in this game at least. Playing pretty much his signature deck at this point and getting a win out of nowhere. Didn't even need the full combo as he clears Neirea up with help of a Raven Idoled Moonfire.
Yeah, about as quick as a combo win as you can get. That was the straightforward old Malagos Druid style of getting the job done. Did not even need the Aviana package to come into play. Frozen is hanging on for dear life. That was Neirea's first chance at booking his spot to the World Championships, but he still has a couple more, whereas Frozen is riding the ragged edge every game now, and you can see that painted perfectly on his expression.
Yeah, you know how important this is to the players that after winning a game, they look like this. You know, that it's just like, okay, One game done, but as you said, I cannot lose a game or I'm knocked out. So full focus from both of these players here.
And take a look, the reality of how rough this situation is for fr0zen. He has a Reno Lock mirror, at best a 50-50 depending on tech cards, and then a big unfavorable with the Priest. So he is in a super tough spot. He knows it. You can see he's trying to summon every fiber of his being. I love these beautiful shots, just really getting close into the emotions of the players.
Yeah, this is absolutely a huge match for both of these players, but we've got plenty more huge matches coming up today as well.
Welcome to paradise, the Bahamas. There's more tales to tell. It's LVGE. It's Samuel Zhao.
Just wanted that music to continue, to be honest.
I do enjoy it.
Yeah, you can see Neirea there just sitting with full focus.
No. No, he is not fully focused right now.
Oh, he's not touching his face.
There
I'm
is
sorry.
one key ingredient missing, my friend. He is relaxed and taking a break right now, was the words that he gave us. The focus will begin again soon.
Yeah, okay, mentally preparing himself.
All right,
then.
much better.
There we go. Oh, God, this is tense.
It really
This
is.
very, very tense. The winner of this match is going to the World Championships, booking their spot as early as can be, minus standard actually, of course. You know, as early as can be in terms of tournaments, and that can pretty much just power out the rest of the year, feeling pretty confident. We are going into game number 6 now, and it is going to be Neirea on his Warlock again, of course, and fr0zen moving over to his Warlock as well, the mirror match. But how mirrored are these decks?
Excellent question, Alexander Raven-Bagley. There is combo in both decks. Both players are playing the Leroy package. Neirea does not have Jiraxxus, whereas fr0zen does. We could sit and argue for about 20 minutes about whether that is a benefit for which player. Both players have the Mountain Giant. They're playing the higher curve of threats. And aside from that, it's fairly similar all the way down. Mistress in both decks. Mind Control Tech in both decks. Blast Crystal Potion in both decks. Faceless Shambler in both decks. Defender of Argus in fr0zen's that's missing from Neirea. Not going to go through all 30 cards here, but the point being, apart from a couple of key differences, very similar tech cards.
That was a fantastic breakdown. Simon, Survivor of the Lake, Welch. Guessing that's how we're talking to each other nowadays. But the Blast Crystal is available for that direct removal for the big 4-drop turn, because regardless of some tech choices, both players want to get a strong turn 4, as that's what this deck does very, very well.
Yeah, there's elements of the Reno Lock mirror that really, really makes me miss the Hand Lock mirror. When, greed and planning and trying to bait your opponent into big Molten Giant swing turns was all a thing. In this, it's much, much more difficult if one player gets big threats early and the other doesn't. It's harder to engineer a situation where you can swing back. This is the one card that can do it. You sometimes feel you have less control over Kazaka's giving you big swings than you did in the old Molten Giant Shadow Flame days.
I miss those days.
Me too, friend.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day. But for now, Neirea's got to work out what he's going to do, because now it's on him to try and respond, as fr0zen was the one with the big 4-drop here in the form of the Twilight Drake. That's just so much health to get through. Is it... What are the pros and cons of Blast Crystal here? Because a lot of the time, if you leave the big 4-drop up, you can be punished by just being it around. It's going to be around. There's potential for just so many trades, so much value out of just one minion played on turn 4.
Yeah.
Although Blast Crystal does, of course, destroy one of your own crystals and is a premium removal tool for the deck.
Yeah, leaving the 4-drop down opens up the avenue for both Faceless, and fr0zen is playing both Faceless. Faceless Shambler is obviously the dream, but you quite often see Reno Lock players break up their combo in this matchup just to Faceless on 5 against a huge minion like this, and I think that is the respect that Neirea is given. No such option in hand for fr0zen, but Neirea just believes on the percentages there's a solid chance that one of those two plays is there, and that's not something he's going to be able to come back against.
Yeah, and in talking of breaking up combo pieces, this is an opportunity for Neirea to break his if he really wants to. Power Overwhelming on the Imp is a very, very clean kill and a cheap kill on this Emperor if he chooses to do so. He can back that up with Kazakus afterwards to get a potion ready and going for whatever fr0zen chooses to respond with. And, you know, this early on, it's very difficult to make the choice with this Power Overwhelming, but otherwise, you know, you're looking to be in a very rough spot. There is Trade Hellfire. Maybe that's better, but looks like it's going to be used there. Okay, he's going to keep all the Power Overwhelming, do a bit of damage to himself. Doesn't matter too much at the moment because the health is so high, and I guess Hellfire is the harder card to use well in the matchup.
Yeah.
So kind of just using it as a deal 3 here.
Yeah, he's now just hoping there's not a big threat drop coming out from fr0zen, so he can go ahead and play his Emperor now, and now he's caught up a little bit for the damage that the Blast Crystal Potion did. Yes, his opponent Emperored as well, but he's Emperoring some proactive minions here, the Kazakus and the second-rate Bruiser, but with Neirea's Dirty Rat in hand. Dirty Rat, of course, is a key card we have to consider in this matchup. You don't always need to wait for the highest Kazakus value in the world, pairing it with that Bram Bronzebeard, because holding on too long can get you punished by that scheming rodent and you just lose access to your potions altogether.
Yeah, it's a very difficult call, especially when, you know, just as difficult when you're considering when you play your Dirty Rat versus when the opponent's going to play theirs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to juggle in this matchup, especially because of the Reno decks. It's a lot of things to consider, as they're all Highlander cards, but also there's the less likely chance of them having them in the first place, right? So very, very difficult calls to make for both these players. There could be a Fellfire Potion would clean this minion up very easily, but again, probably a bit of overkill for a 4-5 at this stage in the game.
Not the best choices. Gain 7, draw 2 are the two viable choices. Deal 4 or summon 5-5 or summon 2. These are the three stronger options. Would have quite happily had one of these options go into the first pool and paired two of them together to make a very strong tempo potion.
Summon 2 as well. So on one hand, Neirea's played Emperor. On the other hand, there's a 1-1 Imp dead. So, you know, plus the Gang Boss.
There's at least 2 1-1 Imps dead, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Very tough call. Let's find out what Neirea actually picked, because this is going to be very, very interesting and maybe dictate a lot of the mid game here. 4 damage, gain 7 armor. Okay, didn't go for the Resurrect there. Interesting.
Yeah, very, very low value on average, I think, overall. The Emperor is the big threat, but he hasn't had a big giant, any of those huge minions. So understandable choice to just consolidate himself as being on the back foot here. It makes sense as well with the fact that he's a mana down constantly as well, so he may be forced to be a little bit reactive for some time and just try and reconsolidate later on.
Yeah, what are you thinking about potentially Dirty Rat, Fellfire Potion, Doomsayer here? Just to buy a turn, then there's you know, your opponent's probably not going to develop on the next turn. And he just buys Neirea a little bit of a breathing room here to be able to continue to tap into some cards.
It's clean. The one issue is if you hit Reno Jackson, that guy right there, then Fellfire Potion doesn't actually clean it up. And since Reno is actually one of the big cards you are looking to try and hit, you should probably be planning for that in your considerations when playing Dirty Rats. You can see now the hesitation from Neirea. He's in a little bit of a sticky spot because of the 6 health that's been summoned off the Dirty Rat.
Yeah. Does have the ultimate backup of just jamming Twisting Nether next turn.
Right.
But you would probably want to hold off anyway to do Twisting Nether into Doomsayer the turn after, if that's your general play.
Yeah, if he was going to Nether, he also could have Dirty Rat into Nether next turn
Yes,
anyway,
exactly,
because the Rat cost 1, so... Ends up dealing the 4. Reno does stick around as well as an Imp Gang Boss token, so his 2-2 Dirty Rat is contested very comfortably, especially now the Coil has been picked up. fr0zen maintaining the initiative in this matchup. Exactly the kind of thing I talked about. He got the early threat. Neirea was forced to react, maybe overreact to it, and that's left him in this position where he's been playing catch-up the entire time.
This is going to be a tough one for fr0zen, actually. No Reno. Alexstrasza next turn into Leroy P.O. Fellfire Potion for exactly 15. So Neirea does have a plan that he could end this game because he's pulled that Reno out. There are obviously more healing cards, available. You know, it's not as straightforward as that. You're not playing against Rogue where there's just damage permanence all of the time. But definitely something to consider that Neirea has like unconventional burst damage because of that Hellfire being reduced and the Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's still taunt minions available as well. That Faceless Shambler that Neirea was playing around early on in the game is still available to wall out some of that Leroy damage. If it can come down on a large enough minion, it will be protected from the Fellfire Potion as well.
This is it, yeah. Indeed, Gul'dan, yeah. This is a tough one. I would generally think about, I mean, it's very easy for me to say, but I would generally think about if you just jam Alexstrasza, would fr0zen just be sat thinking, oh, I'll just, you know, great, can steal Alexstrasza, and then how do you progress with your turn afterwards? And piling a lot of pressure to try and kill Neirea next turn because you'll end up with an 8-8. Obviously, just jamming Alexstrasza is a huge tell to your opponent, and these guys are actually pretty good at the game, believe it or not, so they might not, it might not be as straightforward as that, but I think Neirea definitely needs to piece together or work out exactly what sequence he wants, because this is a huge opportunity for him to just clinch this game out of nowhere and book his spot in the World Championships here.
Yeah, if you were to Alex into that board, that would just be an enormous alarm bell, because it's such a bad play on the board to drop the 8-8 into Sylvanas that you have to have an ulterior motive for it. So if anything, that would freak fr0zen out beyond the point where he might feel relatively comfortable at the moment.
Freak him out so much he just wouldn't know what to do. He'd just stare at the screen for 5 minutes.
So Jaraxxus is a no-go for a little while here. He needs to have taunts in play that stick to the board before he can comfortably play Jaraxxus behind them. Because of the fact that there are still Emperor cards in his hand, and fr0zen, remember when he came off again in his post-game interview, he said, yeah, I felt like my hand tracking was good last game. So if his hand tracking is good again this game, he knows there are 4 discounted cards still in hand. That's plenty enough to still burst him down.
And the fact that those discounted cards, it's not like Emperor was played, you know, a couple of turns ago.
Yeah.
Emperor saw play very, very early in this game. So those 4 cards are one Neirea's continue to hold on to. You've got to put at least one of those as a combo piece, you know, going forward. Maybe even more, just due to the fact you haven't seen them get played yet.
Neirea back in full concentration mode. Hands well and truly planted on the face. The Siphon Cell pickup is very promising for him, but he's trying to find himself a full turn of tempo here. Does go ahead and just jam the Doomsayer. Only 1 damage needed, so Neirea will be expecting this to go down. He's given up on the full turn of tempo plan, and he's just trying to stall against fr0zen.
Dirty Rat could be huge. There is Dirty Rat twisting, although, of course, fr0zen is ahead on the board, and he can... Well, he can actually easily clear this up. Maybe, why do you need twisting? You could just play Dirty Rat. What am I talking about?
I did wonder.
Yeah, I'm just... Shush. Shush, we'll ignore this one. There goes Leroy. There goes Alexstrasza. That is absolutely huge. We've spent a few turns now talking about how Neirea can piece together what he has in his hand to just kill fr0zen a lot of the time because Reno being pulled earlier. But fr0zen said, look, you pulled out my Reno, I'm pulling out 2 of your cards, and they are 2 very, very impactful cards in this matchup.
That is just game-ending potential on this front. Power Overwhelming now being used to push through. Shadow Flame as well. He's going to retain the board while clearing this mess up. Could have let it all go down to the Doomsayer, but he wants to have this board consolidated for that safety so he can have potential to play Jaraxxus now. Leroy is gone. Alexstrasza is gone, and he has a taunt in play, protecting from any direct damage.
Absolutely huge. That clear was actually really cool because it's not just a natural play, right? You know, you brand 2 high-value minions onto the board when they have the Doomsayer, which means they always die next turn, but you also kind of give them initiative. fr0zen removed that option from Neirea by clearing the board himself, and as you said, this is one of the safest Jaraxxus setups I've ever seen. A 2/6 Dirty Rat. The Mistress of Mixtures, which as and when traded into, will heal Jaraxxus up by a maximum 4. And Bran, just as available as 1, just a huge threat to Neirea because Bran is not something you can realistically just sit and leave on the board due to the sheer power of that card alone.
Yeah, and the Leroy is gone, and the Leroy is the big alarm bell that prevents Jaraxxus being effective in this matchup in a lot of cases. There's not even a Ragnaros in Neirea's deck that he can use to threaten Jaraxxus' life total. fr0zen is well and truly set up to just ride this value train all the way to the bank now. I said we could have a massive argument about whether Jiraxis was an advantage or a disadvantage in this mirror. Players do disagree on that, and you can see, although popular thinking would say, hey, you just go to 15, you get burst down. If you're clever with it, you can set up these crazy opportunities.
Yeah, and this is something, you know, as you said, we've seen again and again. It's how you choose to set up Jiraxis and when you can find the space to, which, you know, defines how well the matchup goes for you and how good of a player in general these guys are at these decks. But, man, Dirty Rat. Filthy Rat, it should be called. It's a step above Dirty. Absolutely filthy there. So much value.
Keeping with the theme of us disagreeing on pretty much everything, you probably like that card, right?
Dirty Rat?
Yeah.
I like it when I play it to people.
Okay, good answer.
I think I should be allowed to play it, but no one else.
All right, yeah, good answer.
It sucks when they pull stuff from me.
We finally agree.
It only took a trip to the Bahamas, the HCT Winter Championships. A very, very close game between two great competitors here, fr0zen and Neirea.
Neirea, though, with everything on the line, he's been on the hill for so long now. 2 epic games bringing this match towards a conclusion. He's been 1 win away, joining Shitanudachi, booking a spot in the World Championship, but it's fr0zen that's been clawing back. We heard from him, you know, his stance on playing from behind a little bit earlier, and he's putting that to good use now, scrapping this back to what looks like is about to be an even series.
Yeah, bear in mind, if a minion does stick for Neirea somehow, there is 9 damage just from hand at this point.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, Fellfire does damage to yourself, so you've got to be wary of that. You might kill yourself and force a draw, which can happen. But, you know, there is a lot of damage, but Blast Crystal, it's been in hand for a very long time now. It's going to be used to at least kill the first threat, and now fr0zen is just going to be pressing that hero power every single turn, generating a 6/6, and Mountain Giant, not terrible, but definitely not great. As you know, it dies just on board at this point.
Yeah, there's a very small window when Jiraxis appears. There's 1 turn, maybe 2, that you can, you know, try and build a board with enough individual threats on it that they can't deal with them all, and then you force through some damage. Once the first 2 or maybe an absolute push 3 turns pass, they've just got so much board advantage from summoning Infernals that you have no way of building a board presence again, because they just have the on-board trades available. You can see here, even if Mountain Giant was played, I mean, just offhand, Faceless the Mountain Giant, double trade on the board, press your hero power again. You've killed their 8/8, you have your own 8/8 and a new 6/6 on the board. It's just impossible to develop into this.
Yeah, I do like this play, though. Just goes halfway between. It does do the unfortunate side effect of healing up fr0zen's Jiraxis here, but it just puts a spread out power onto the board, whereas the Mountain Giant, as you said, would be a solitary minion with not a lot to do.
5 damage plus 4 is the potion, which means this board state gets to trade even more effectively. And now there is 15, 18 damage being threatened just from the board state being shown on the following turn from Neirea, which means if he taps and makes no defensive play this turn, he is going to be facing a level series.
Yeah, looks like it. Neirea sitting forward now, just trying to make sure there's nothing at all he can do to try and survive here. But it is not looking pretty. I don't even know if Neirea's got anything in the deck that would actually open up that opportunity for him to finish this off here.
A magical second Leroy. 7
Sack
cards.
pack.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a inspired tech choice in the worlds of results-oriented thinking right now, but this is going to a Game 7. I feel like I and so many other casters have said those words so many times this week. So many of these players so evenly matched, as to be expected when you see players of these qualities coming up against each other.
Yeah, I expect nothing less from these guys. Both of them performing very well in the scene in general. fr0zen pretty much on a hot streak in the past, even the past year or so, maybe 6 months, has been performing very, very well. Neirea, one of the old guard at this point, has been in the game for such a long time, and he even, you know, the way he's just evolved and changed his approach to the game. He said he used to play 1,000,000 hours a day, you know, just jam so much Hearthstone. Now he's like, actually, I think the more relaxed approach, I play a couple of hours a day, I watch a lot of Hearthstone, I watch a lot of different streams, a lot of educational streams, and I've still not stolen that hat yet. I'm gonna come and grab it later. Now I've just told him the plan. That's just a bad idea.
Say, now you just sound like a bully.
I'm a nice guy. No, but Neirea actually takes a much more relaxed approach to the game now, and he said it suits him. He feels he actually just plays better. He's put less pressure on himself, and well, so far, even though this is now evened up between these two players, Neirea's come a long way, just as fr0zen has, to get to this point in the Winter Championships.
Yeah, remember the picture that we painted before that game started? He had a mirror to win, which was somewhere around 50-50, depending on your opinion on the tech choices, and then this matchup to win as well. The matchup that is winnable. We've seen it happen. It can be done with an aggressive start like fr0zen has here. Minion into Talon Priest is what you're looking for, but it is an overwhelming favorite for the Reno Lock in this matchup.
Yeah, and especially with the Doomsayer on 2 available for Neirea here. We saw earlier where Dokpon actually kept the Shadow Word Pain to deal with this kind of this kind of response. It's a reasonable idea, but with just the one-off in the Reno Lock lists, it's very difficult to want to keep an answer to pretty much one specific minion. I suppose in Gang Boss is something to consider, but really, as the Dragon Priest, you want to chain out the minions and say, no, you answer me at this point.
Yeah, the problem with keeping Pain as well is that you often get into a situation where the turn you're going to Pain is kind of a broken off-curve turn for you anyway, so it becomes awkward in that sense. I very much subscribe to the school of thought of, shut your eyes and hope they don't get the Doomsayer. It is a one-of after all. And Soulfire now picked up from Neirea. Lots of early game answers to be able to stall out a board position and prevent a rushdown strategy. But now Neirea is going to get his think on, because this is always the dilemma. Do you want to drop the Doomsayer where they can just nail it on curve with the Shadow Word Pain? Do you want to try and interrupt a bigger turn later on? This means Coin Talon Priest can come down right now, but then you have the chance of nuking all of that with the Doomsayer.
Yeah, and as well, I think because the first minion was a Cleric and not a Twilight Whelp, that adds to it as well, because if you play the Doomsayer, even at best for you, they get a card draw from that Cleric. Because they'll just hit the Doomsayer and heal it to draw an additional card. So, even at best, they're drawing one, but Neirea are going to choose to lock out the old turn 3, which is pretty reasonable in my book. That's when I feel Dragon Priest truly starts to snowball out of control. If they played any minion beforehand, and then they can continue on 3, the minions start to get very, very difficult indeed to deal with.
No threat, though, for Neirea. Yeah, it's a Farseer, but it's not any of the big boys that he could have dropped. Even, a Refreshment Vendor would have been a decent chunk of stats to get on the board. Twilight Drake would have been the dream. 3-3 just not contesting this board state very well, though it does help to tidy up with the Shadow Bolt.
Yeah, this is just terrifying, as we can see that there's the Draconid Operative available, which lines up almost directly to the Siphon Soul, but very similar to when we talk about the Mage versus the Dragon Priest. Well, once you've Siphon Souled, you're kind of running out of answers here, especially with the Shadow Bolt gone already as well. fr0zen just have more options, of course, than just the Operative. He is going to go for it. Could have just played the Azure Drake, especially after the Shadow Bolt. Twisting Nether is very nice. Abyssal Enforcer could just be an on-curve play, although you generally want to build a board yourself, so the Abyssal Enforcer doing damage to your own minions isn't fantastic, but also the Twisting Nether is very reactive when I feel fr0zen wants to be the aggressor by far in this matchup.
Yeah. Early Siphon coming down, but it buys him so much time, so many additional turns when you factor in that Draconid potentially attacking over the next 2 or even 3 turns. That Siphon gives him so much time to pull through to the high-value cards that he needs. But fr0zen is continuing to ask awkward questions. He's playing this matchup fantastically so far, just presenting awkward board states to Neirea on every turn that he can, forcing Neirea to have the answers. And now, for the first time, Neirea is whiffing on the answer, and now fr0zen can take his opportunity to snowball, although he has been presented with a big question of his own in that Twilight Drake.
Yep. fr0zen, I've heard, is pretty good at snowballing. It all starts to make sense.
Did you like that one?
I did like it. Yeah, this is huge. The brand is much more realistic, especially after seeing the Siphon Soul, that this Nether Spite is going to come down. And here comes the Operative Train, at least for one additional one. Bookworm, I think it's a reasonable pickup. Twilight Guardian. Maybe you even pick the Twilight Whelp as a battery at this point. But he did end up going for the Guardian. Okay. Oh, he double buff from the Corruptor as well.
Yeah, also
Wow.
he was overfilling his hand. If he wanted to play the Operative that turn, he would have had to preemptively coin just to get the 2 Operative cards in his hand, and then still would have burned the next draw from his deck. So just choosing to empty his hand a little bit first. This 2/8 Bran is likely not going anywhere unless Twisting Nether comes out from Neirea this turn, which it does not, and that is fantastic news for the Americas representative. This is the kind of board, this is the kind of start. And, I mean, maybe most importantly, this is the kind of Warlock hand that you beat. The AoE options are just not there.
Yep, that 8 mana tap into Sun Fury, not feeling too fantastic here for Neirea at all. This is absolutely crazy. Both players head in hands. Pretty much the Hearthstone player's position at this point.
Yeah, coin being dumped from the hand in this spot, it looks like I said, just to make room for these additional cards to start to come into it. Operative going to hit the board. 2 chances here to pick up big sources of burst damage. PO is 4, Fellfire Potion is 5. Both of those represent some significant burst that Neirea is going to have to keep in mind now. Dirty Rat has merit too, though, you know.
I mean, well, we saw that last game.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
The fact that that's literally all we've got to say about this proves the point in itself.
Yeah. I mean, the Mountain Giant is just playable this turn as an 8/8, but there was the opportunity to jam 2 rats with a Bran on board. But still, fr0zen is not a madman. There is no time for the highlight reel. Disguised Toast is here in the Bahamas if you do want to watch some highlight reel videos, but fr0zen is all about making the solid plays. One of the biggest games of Hearthstone he has ever played, and this is a man who has played some high-stakes games of Hearthstone.
What's important, though, I can see a Bran on the other side of the board in Neirea's hand and a mind control tech, which could work out pretty well, depending on how well Neirea has trained his mind control tech to steal the big guys. Gonna go for it. He pretty much has to at this point, and the 2 on the right are the 2 he's after. Well, okay, reasonable.
That's not bad.
No, not bad at all.
That is not bad by any means. Mortal Coil can now be used to cycle out 1 more. He has Soulfire if he wants to take care of the 5/4 and just isolate the Giant in this spot. But look at the value of his hand. These are classically what you would consider to be the power cards in the deck on the whole, but the key cards in this matchup are those big AoEs. So maybe these are some of the cards he is happy to discard as long as he holds on to that Reno, which is looking like it might be necessary.
Maybe this is what you have to do, or what Neirea has to do to get some good karma in the Bahamas, is just be able to Soulfire, discard what is a typically a fantastic card, the card the deck is named after, to maybe get some AoE next turn, be able to you know, repel a potential another assault onto the board that fr0zen may be able to build up here, because we were talking about all the great options in Neirea's hand. Look at the sheer size of fr0zen's hand.
And the Reno is gone. Neirea has the board for now. If he can hold on to this, his health total won't be too big of a deal, because Dragon Priest cannot burst significantly from hand. They have to have minions and repetitive damage to be able to get that done. But if fr0zen can start to swing back here and he can pick this board apart very, very nicely with combinations of death and pain here, if he can rebuild a board in his own favor, it is not going to take very long for this series potentially to come to the most crushing of ends in favor of the North American.
Yeah, this is... Woof. Okay. There's a Twisting Nether. That's a good AoE, from what I know about the game. And is it too early? I think it might be at this point. Neirea agrees. He's going to go for the Faceless Shambler and the Emperor to get some more value here. And there is Faceless Manipulator and Leroy in hand. There is potential for a big amount of burst coming out from Neirea later on, but he has to survive at this point. Dragonfire Potion.
Does he rat is the question. Dragonfire Potion looks great. It lets him push so much damage here. Does injure the Giant, sure, but allows it to push through. He's going to rat afterwards, maybe looking for a high-value target to trade this 8-1 in. And he gets the absolute dream 8-1 into 8-8. fr0zen has played this series fantastically up to this point. He's maximized the opportunities when they've come to him, but he has also benefited from just a little bit of luck in these last few turns.
Most definitely, but Neirea's got his chance too now. He can Dirty Rat into Twisting Nether, a very common combination of cards from the Reno lock here, but this game is still close. Although fr0zen looks, really ahead at this point, if Dirty Rat comes out onto, not the Twilight Whelp, basically, then that's still a good value play. And Neirea said, no, I want you to develop more onto the board. Then I can Dirty Rat Twisting Nether and maybe slow this game down even more and slow it down long enough for him to potentially find a way to win.
Does fr0zen have the soul read in this spot? Drake replaces itself, so he has no issue dropping that on the board. He can do the same thing with Netherspite Historian. If we see him hold back here, he's figured out what's going on. He recognizes this is an AoE turn, but he also recognizes he can afford to push forward a little bit here and force the AoE this turn from Neirea.
Yeah, this is nuts. Here comes Dirty Rat. Is he going to get the Malagoose? Nope. That was rough. Okay, still good value, though, from Twisting Nether, although not the pull he wanted. See, we can see it as the Malagos in hand, but, Neirea none the wiser. Here comes the Abyssal Enforcer, and this is a good turn as any to play it since you're not damaging the board you don't have. And it's going to be followed up by the Blackwing Technician, starting to pile on even more pressure. 1 damage off lethal, and we can see there is 5 from hand for fr0zen. The old 5 burst damage from Priest. That old chestnut.
Yeah, we've mentioned it before. Normally the max damage you're playing around is Bran and Corruptor for 6. This isn't quite there. The Brans have, of course, already gone in spectacular fashion from both players. But the tap from Neirea has sealed his fate here, ending his turn on 8. fr0zen, ladies and gentlemen, has done it, coming back from a huge deficit in a massively unfavorable position to be the first qualifier for the World Championship from North America.
Yeah, huge congratulations to fr0zen there, fighting all the way back from multiple very rough spots. An absolutely fantastic match from both of these players. Very, very high skill level, but fr0zen does take it, and as you said, 1 for EU now, 1 for America. Who is going to join them in the top 4 later on? We're going to find out, but huge congratulations again to fr0zen. That was a tough match for both players. Both kept the composure, but fr0zen ended up on top after that one.
Yeah, fantastic series, played at a massively high level. Neirea navigating his freeze mage games expertly. fr0zen understanding the combo deck plays, keeping his cool under pressure, navigating his way, and then just that extra little sprinkle of luck that he needed. The Reno discard off the Soulfire. No big pulls from Neirea's Dirty Rats. Other effects as well, but he put himself in those positions. Great read on the AoE effect to clutch it out. fr0zen massively deserving, and North America massively deserving this potentially dominant position after phase 1 of qualifying for the World Championships is over at the end of this event.
Yeah, and let's check out the bracket. As you can see, Stanu Dachi was the first player to go into the semi-finals and book his spot. fr0zen is now joining him, and joined with fr0zen on the stage is going to be Rachel, ready for an interview.
Thank you so much, guys. I was doing a little celebratory dance for him because you're going to the Hearthstone World Championship now. That's got to feel pretty incredible, but you pulled yourself out of a big hole there. So how did you turn this match around?
I mean, I knew I made a big misplay like earlier on in the series, and things were like really falling apart, but I'm really happy that, especially during the Reno lock game, I felt really in control. I knew exactly what I was doing still. I was really, it's really different from the first day where I made a misplay and then I just completely fell apart afterwards. But I think that my lineup was also favored versus Neirea's, and it played out pretty well.
Well, you were telling us yesterday that you explained this game to your parents. You told them what to look out for. Did they come here today feeling a little bit more confident? What do they have to say about what you did yesterday and what you've done today?
I don't think they're here yet, but I'm sure that they're watching in the hotel room because my mom messaged me after and said she's really nervous watching live and she doesn't really want to like break down or anything.
Well, you do have a couple more fans watching you here today, specifically one right down in the front, coming all the way from Wisconsin with her family. Her name is Stephanie, and she's here to cheer you on. Persephone, I want to know anything you want to say to her and her family?
Thanks for stopping by and cheering me on. Thank you for support, and thanks for I also want to thank all the people who prepped with me last minute, including Chalky. Really supportive. He really helped me figure out how to beat the Reno lock, and we went with the game plan of fatiguing them, and it really worked out.
You have a wonderful group around you of friends that practice with you and family and fans that support you. Persephone, thanks for coming out here. Thanks for everyone supporting fr0zen. We're going back to the casters, and we've got more Hearthstone for you coming up.
Thanks a lot, Rachel. Always great to see people come out and support the players that they love. So it's definitely awesome, an absolutely fantastic series overall. Any last points, Sal?
Yeah, fantastic from fr0zen. Great to see. As I've mentioned so many times, he is one of the most well-respected pro players in the entire community. It's great to see him come good, and he is a deserving player to just take his rightful place at the World Championships.
Yeah, we've had 2 amazing matches already, and we've got plenty more coming up, so don't go anywhere. There's more Hearthstone action coming right up after this.